This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome one and all to the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and for the next 4 hours, I'm your host. I am your guide as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X-Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X-Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 11 p.m. Eastern until 3 a.m. Eastern, right here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, iHeartRadio, Talkstar Radio, and broadcast affiliates around the world. If you'd like to send me an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And of course, if you'd like to check out our website to find out what we've been doing, where we are going, and what our plans are, www.xzoneradiotv.com. And for all the information about the great shows, hosts, and programming we have available for you 24/7, 365 with our compliments on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit xzbn.net. You know, X-Zone Nation, I say we're a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, and our guest this hour fits right in there. Mark Pitstick has over 40 years experience in training in hospitals, pastoral counseling settings, mental health centers, and private practice. His training includes a premedical degree, graduate theology, pastoral counseling studies, master's in clinical psychology, and a doctorate in chiropractic healthcare. He also has provided suicide prevention counseling and education to many people. Mark became aware of his clairaudient experiences at age 10, and he has been blessed with numerous miracles, revelatory, and spiritual transformative experiences. After working in hospitals with many suffering and dying adults and children, he was motivated to find sensible, evidence-based answers to the questions that many people ask. Who am I? Why am I here? What happens after I die? Will I see my departed loved ones again? Is there a God? If so, why is there so much suffering? His books, documentary films, CDs, and workshops address all of these questions and help you survive and even thrive through life's biggest changes and challenges. Further, his workshops help you to discover how to enjoy the greatest life you have envisioned, no matter what your current circumstances. Dr. Pitstick wrote Soul Proof and Radiant Wellness with endorsements from Drs. Wayne Dwyer, Elizabeth Kubler-Rose, Deepak Chopra, Bernie Siegel, and many others. His latest book, The 11 Questions, shares his and 11 experts' answers to the most commonly asked questions about life, death, and afterlife. Joining me now is Mark Pitstick. And Mark, welcome back to the X-Zone. It's a great pleasure having you with us again.
My pleasure, Rob. Thank you.
You know, you and I were talking before we went on air, and I am so excited about talking to you about one of the projects that you have called Soul Phone. And first of all, before we get to that, what made you explore the topic of afterlife evidence and want to share it?
Well, as you mentioned, Rob, when I was young, I started working in hospitals at the age of 19, so that's 45 years ago. Excuse me, and so being around all these people who are dying, especially little children, just drove me to my knees. My religious upbringing was Lutheran, and it was God is all-knowing, all-powerful, all-loving, and so I thought, okay, everything's great. Up to that point, I never had a loved one die, and never really faced with the harsh reality of life, and so seeing death on a daily basis, and being highly trained and working on these people,
right,
and then they die, just pretty much made me throw everything out the window that I believed, and so it was a good period looking back, and I was open-minded about it. For all I knew, the idea of a God or an afterlife was kind of like the Easter Bunny or Tooth Fairy or Santa Claus. It was wishful thinking. We just couldn't face the idea of nothingness. So I began a search then as an agnostic and collected everything I could, read every book I could, went to workshops and so on. And after about 20 years, realized I had several boxes full of information, put it together, and that was the book Soul Proof, 9 categories of evidence that collectively shows without a doubt that consciousness, spirit, awareness, whatever you want to call it, does indeed survive physical death.
All right, Mark, we're going to have a bit of a cliffhanger here because unfortunately I have to take my first break. Please stand by. Exonation, my guest this hour is Dr. Mark Pitstick. And there's 2 websites, Exonation, www.soulproof.com and www.soulphone.org. This is the X Zone. We'll be back on the other side of this break in about 2 minutes, so don't go away.
This is the X Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
Hello, I'm Pete Marsh. With my daughter Justina, we will be presenting the new radio show, Too Good to Be True. If something seems too good to be true, it usually is. But with the help of Justina's amazing gifts, we're going to gain insight into questions that don't yet have complete answers. Have you wondered who built Stonehenge and for what reason? Why are crop circles found in the same region as Stonehenge and elsewhere? Are crop circles a hoax, or are they created with technologies that we have little knowledge of? Who built the pyramids in Egypt and also in other countries? How and why were they built? Was the Titanic switched with the Britannic as part of a gigantic insurance fraud, or for more insidious reasons? What caused the Tunguska event when trees were flattened over an 800 square mile area in Siberia? Will the new insights be too good to be true? Well, that will depend on what you are prepared to believe. Please join us as we start on this journey together. For more information on Too Good to Be True, visit www.xzbn.net.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
Dr. Mark Pitstick is our special guest, Exo Nation, www.soulphone.org. All right, so here you are, young man, and you work in the final stages with people who are getting ready to pass on. So take us from there again.
Well, not only getting ready to pass on, oftentimes it's violent. People have their throats cut and
oh my gosh,
hit by a truck and shot and stabbed. And I was always in the ER and ICU, so seeing all this, and that's why I was motivated then to find out. So that's the first thing I like people to know. And you mentioned my website, soulproof.com. There are tons of free articles, all the radio shows you mentioned with all kinds of top names, Raymond Moody and Wayne Dyer and Brian Weiss and others. People can listen to these radio shows free, read the articles. So this will show them the breadth and the depth of the evidence. So the first point I want to share with people is that it's already been proven that life is forever. We've discussed that it's much like in the 1400s when it was commonly believed that the world was flat. Mm-hmm. You imagine what that was like, walking around or taking a boat trip, and you're like, where in the hell is that edge? We don't want to go over that. But then at some point, somebody discovered it was round. Yeah. And how long did it take for that good news to get around? Well, it's the same way now. There's countless clinical scientific evidence that shows that no one really dies. It's actually an optical illusion because of our limited senses. But we need to get that word out now. And in the best of all worlds, that'd be in the front pages in the 6 o'clock news, but we're not quite there yet.
When skeptics don't believe this evidence is true, Mark, how do you respond?
Well, it depends on what kind of skeptics they are, Rob. And so open-minded skeptics, first of all, believers, they already know, so they don't have to tell them anything. But open-minded skeptics are really our biggest audience, and those are the people that we share all this evidence with, and why I wrote Soul Proof and created the Soul Proof documentary film. So we found that people who are really open-minded are going to see then this vast amount of evidence, including scientific and clinical studies, and then make their own decisions based on that. Closed-minded skeptics, on the other hand, we don't bother. They'll change their mind until they pass on and see for themselves, and then they'll be pleasantly surprised.
What type of evidence do you have for the existence of life after death, that no one really dies? No, I'm not asking for myself or the regular listeners of the X Zone. I'm talking about for the new members who have joined us over the past couple of weeks and who haven't had the pleasure of hearing you before.
Sure. Well, there are 9 categories, but let's talk about just a couple of the most impactful. And so most people know about near-death experiences.
Yeah.
But what most people don't know is that there are around 10,000 documented cases, documented by university professors, cardiologists, and so on, who have observed that while a person's clinically dead, so their hearts quit beating, their lungs quit breathing, they're flatline, brainwave, EEG, their eyes are closed, they're inside ICU or ER. Despite all that, they are aware during that time and can see events that happen inside a resuscitation room. After a while, they get bored, hover above the hospital, outside the hospital. And upon successful resuscitation, without any chance of talking with family or friends from whom they could have learned these details, they tell doctors and nurses detailed observations they had that really happened. So, again, 10,000 approximately these cases, and this is the number from Ken Ring, a PhD, University of Connecticut. So that's amazing. It's even more amazing when you consider there are a number of people who are blind, including some who have been blind from birth, who also have this same phenomena. So this in itself is very strongly indicative that consciousness is non-local. It's not attached to the body. It continues on even after the physical body ceases functioning. There's no other explanation for how a person could see and see accurately events happening outside the hospital. The next category of evidence are called after-death contacts, or ADCs. And so the stats on that, and these are from Raymond Moody, MD, PhD, is about 30% of Americans have had these, 66% of widows and widowers, and a full 75% of bereaved parents. Although when I give talks to bereaved parents, and I do quite often these days, almost everyone raises their hand when I ask if they've had one or more meaningful perceptions of their, quote, departed child.
But if you don't mind me asking you this, Mark, how many of those are wishful thinking cases that they in fact have not had contact, but they've wanted to have contact, and is there a difference?
Well, that's a great question. And so certainly not all of them can be authenticated, but some after-death contacts can. I'll give you two quick examples with notable people. Carl Jung, okay, pretty well known.
Sure.
Founder of psychotherapy, contemporary of Freud. He had a dream ADC, and after-death contacts often do occur while a person is asleep because the analytical brain shut down and the person is able to sense more of the greater reality than they are when we're fully awake. So he had a dream that he was talking with a neighbor who had recently passed on. And the neighbor said, Carl, when you wake up, you're going to wonder whether this is just your imagination. To show you it's not, go over to my house tomorrow, ask my wife to let you in the library. Go to this shelf, this row, there'll be a book by this name of this color. Now, they weren't that close. Jung had not been in his library. Next day did as instructed, and there's the book exactly as told.
Wow.
And then Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, while she was at the University of Chicago, was walking down the hall and passed a woman and thought, boy, she looks familiar, and then realized it was a woman who had died 6 months earlier. Many of the after-death contacts, a person will appear gauzy, filmy, but this woman looked solid. So Elizabeth called after her, indeed, and we'll call her Mary. It was her. So Dr. Ross asked her into her office. They talked for a while. She had the wherewithal to ask her to write a note to the chaplain who had also worked with them for months before the woman died of cancer. They did, and handwriting experts verified that the writing was perfectly the same as when the woman was living on Earth. So those are just two. And the third category I'd like to share are scientific input, particularly the work of Ian Stevenson, 60 years of research, University of Virginia, the chairperson of the psychiatry department at the University of Virginia Medical School, looking at children's past lives. He and his team investigated over 3,000 cases where children would report another life. Say a 5-year-old would say, before I came here, this was my name, and I had a wife, and I had children. And the word would get to Dr. Stevenson and his team, His investigators would interview everybody involved. If everything seemed above board, bring the child to this village or town hundreds of miles away to which the child had never been, and without any prompting, the child gets off the train and correctly identifies spouse, children, tells them details that only an intimate relative would know, leads them to the house without any direction, shows them where he buried some money when he was alive in this different time and place. So that in itself is amazing, but it gets better than that. In about 30% of these cases, there are corresponding birthmarks corresponding with the death wounds of the person in this previous time and place. So, for example, in this lifetime, a little child may have 3 small birthmarks on the front, 3 larger ones on the back, and upon investigation, because Dr. Stevenson, being a medical doctor, can get into medical records, saw that this purported person had been shot from the front 3 times. So lots of cases like that. If a person, well, it's all compiled in soul proof, but if a person looks at the evidence, it's there, and it's there abundantly.
Unreal. And yet there's still skeptics out there.
Well, uninformed skeptics. The other research that's just amazing is Dr. Gary Schwartz, and this, of course, is a segue into the soul phone work. And Dr. Schwartz has been working on the question of afterlife survival for 20 years, and he approached it by studying mediums. So he himself took training how to become a fake medium. So he became an expert on cold readings and talking quickly and all that. So he knew how they worked. So he's investigated many mediums over the years and found about 30 to be genuinely valid. He calls the medium rock stars, and we're talking 90-95% hit or success rate. And for example, John Edward is one of the first people that Dr. Schwartz investigated. George Anderson right now, Suzanne Giesman, former naval commander. There are just some really accurate people who have been investigated, double, triple blind studies, and shows without a doubt that they have valid abilities to communicate with those who have passed on but not passed away.
But wasn't John Edwards exposed as a fraud?
Not to my knowledge, no. Dr. Schwartz says he's one of the most accurate. You know, there can be people who find. I think I read what that was about, and somebody said, "Oh, he was talking to one of the camera crew," and then later on he did a reading for the cameraman. But we're talking about, nobody's perfect, and when you do thousands of readings, but we're talking about in the laboratory, University of Arizona-based research. He came out with flying colors.
All right. So you're the director of the Soul Phone Foundation that supports the research of Dr. Gary Schwartz at the University of Arizona. How did you two meet?
Well, he was a guest on my show. I hosted a show for a year or so called Ask the Soul Doctors, where I interviewed Anita Moore, Johnny, and Carolyn Mace and others, and asked them the same 11 questions, which you named in your introduction. And when I interviewed Gary, I had the sense that I had met a peer, a person who had a passion that matched mine, and a person who had been searching for these answers his whole life, and so we just really hit it off. And then he and I were both involved in the organization Eternia, which was started by Eben Alexander, MD, the neurosurgeon who wrote Proof of Heaven. And so Gary asked me last autumn if I would consider working with him, assisting, being the face of his research, because he's so busy. He has a team of optical physicists, software engineers, and other scientists working on these devices, which we'll explain more in a moment. And he doesn't have time to get the word out. So the foundation was formed to raise funds and also educate the public about what is coming up, and so people can start living accordingly, because the proof is there.
All right, listen.
Forever being.
We've got to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Please stand by. Exonation, Dr. Mark Pitstick is our special guest this hour. www.soulphone.org and www.soulproof.com. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, all around the world, on the X Zone Broadcast Network, across Europe on Radio X, as well as the new Euro Radio TV network, and let me see, iHeartRadio, and of course our good friends at the Talkstar Radio Network. We'll be back on the other side of this break with Dr. Mark Pitstick. Don't go away.
Dreams are our personal gateways into infinite wisdom. Don't miss shamanic counselor and indigenously trained dream decoder Sandra Corcoran's inspiring book, Shamanic Awakening Between the Dark and the Daylight. This remarkable work chronicles Sandra's 35 years of experience with diverse wisdom keepers and her initiations throughout the Americas and across the British Isles, Turkey, Greece, and Egypt. Sandy's knowledge of symbology, psychology, and myth influence her dream blog and workshops. Sandy offers private tarot readings, international journeys, a meditative CD, as well as her book, Shamanic Awakening, to encourage you as you navigate this earth walk, creating a deeper connection to yourself and all that is. Find this and more at Sandy's website, starwalkervisions.com.
This is the X Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
How would you like to be able to read other people's minds? Well, the next best thing is here. When you know how to read a person's name, you know how the person thinks, feels, and behaves. Each letter in our name holds a key to unlock our true essence. Our name contains both our gifts and challenges in this lifetime. Mnemology science discovers personality secrets hidden in the placement of the letters of our names, including the first and last impression people remember about us. Sharon shows us how to interpret the arrangement of letters as outlined in her book, Know the Name, Know the Person. Sharon Lynn Wyeth created mnemology science after 18 years of research and testing her theories, and has supported thousands of people around the world in understanding themselves and others better. You'll enjoy Sharon's unique teachings as she shares her system to learn the gifts behind your given birth name. Even if you don't like your birth name, there are jewels in this book. If you're thinking of changing your name, ready to name your child, or wanting to get along better with others, this is the book for you. If you'd like to improve your relationships and change your life for the better, get the book today, Know the Name, Know the Person, or visit www.knowthename.com. That's www.knowthename.com.
Hello, I'm Justina Marsh, and with my dad Pete, we are going to present a new show called Too Good to Be True. Together, we are aiming to discover more truths about this world and beyond. Do you have unanswered questions about the world? Do you ever wonder about aliens, conspiracy theories, or the universe? There are many shows discussing subjects such as pyramids or UFOs, but we want to relay this information based on our own research, including from spiritual means. Hopefully, listeners will be helped with their own beliefs and will appreciate the psychic insights that add to the previous research and information. We both look forward to sharing this insight and beginning this journey with our listeners. Visit xzbn.net for more information about when to listen.
Exonation, Dr. Mark Pitstick is our special guest this hour. His websites are www.soulproof.com and soulphone.org. So you got together with Dr. Gary Schwartz. You're working on the Soul Phone Foundation. And I have to ask you, what is the Soul Phone?
That's a name we have for a series of devices, actually, Rob. The first device is called the Soul Switch.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just a switch, an on and off binary indicator. And there are several different experiments Dr. Schwartz has a prototype in detecting light. So again, we're talking about detecting the presence of spirit beings, people who have died,
mm-hmm.
but who really are right there. So we can detect them by light, by emotion, and by their energy. And so, for example, and this is all very computerized and special software written for it and so on. So, for example, there'll be a laser beam, and one of the mediums that works with Dr. Schwartz, one of these top mediums, will say to one of the collaborating, they're called the hypothesized collaborating spirits, HCS, ask them to pass their hand to a beam, because the picture that emerges is that those in spirit are not just gauzy, filmy energy beings like Casper, the friendly ghost flying around. They like to take on physical form. They do so when they're, quote, on the other side, and they especially do so when they're visiting those of us on Earth. So they can manifest, just like quantum physics describes the nature of reality as alternating between
mm-hmm.
particles and energy. Likewise, they can take on form when they like. So say, please pass your hand through to answer yes. Don't do anything if the answer is no. So this is the first device, the Soul Switch, and the anticipated time frame is 1 year with a 90 to 95% probability that we'll have that. Well, after we have the switch, first of all, the switch will allow some rudimentary communication. We're in the process of designing 20 questions. You heard saying, what is this, 20 questions? Well, we're going to have 20 questions, which will quickly allow us then to validate that the visiting person in spirit is who they say they are, and then allow some rudimentary communication. The second device is called Soul Text, and so that will be a keyboard, which is a series of switches. You know, if you look at any kind of keyboard, those are just switches. When you push an L, that's a yes for the L. And so the anticipated time frame for that is about 2 years with the same probability of anticipated success. People will be able to text with their, quote, departed loved ones. Not only that, but also eminent scientists and inventors. There's a whole team of those who have passed on before. They were brilliant while they're on Earth, and they still want to help us. People like Albert Einstein and Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla, Max Planck, and others. So they have already been in communication to the mediums, and we just cannot wait to have teleseminars, webinars, and so on, where they're sharing us information how to solve our biggest problems. The next device anticipated is called Soul Voice, which will allow you people to talk with disembodied spirits. And then after that, Soul Video, which will be like video conferencing, Skype or Zoom. So this is happening right now. It's going to happen, and it's going to change things mightily. First of all, it's going to take away, it's going to settle the question for a lot of those skeptics, and it's going to help people drop fear. Because, you know, when you know life is forever, then you can settle into doing what you came here to do and not be worried about what else somebody else is doing or little minor differences.
Do we really need to know all this?
Well, that's an individual decision, of course.
Let the dead, let those who have passed rest on the other side. Well,
they're certainly welcome to do that. In other words, only those souls who are interested in communicating will come forward. To those who want to or need to sleep or just want to be in a kind of a limbo, they're certainly welcome to do that. But what we know now through these authentic mediums is that there are top people who want to come through. In fact, Gary was just saying today in a conference call, they're being reassured that there are thousands of motivated, high-energy spirits who want to help.
But how are they going to help since they're in the past and they know nothing about the present. That would be like getting General Lee to head an attack on Iran or Iraq or work against ISIS.
Well, actually, it turns out that time doesn't stop for them. In other words, they're seeing the greater realities. So I think we talked on a previous show how the average human senses, wonderful as they are, detect much less than 1% of reality. And that's, again, a lot because of the filtering of our central nervous system. So these folks who have dropped their body aren't hampered by that, and they're seeing more of the greater reality, the other 99.999%. So, yeah, they know what happened during the Civil War, but they also know what's happening now. They can tap into the Akashic records, whatever you want to call it. Irvin Laszlo describes the 0-point field where all information and energy is stored.
But let me ask you this, Mark. Let me ask you this. If you have these so-called top mediums, why can't they get the answers for you now? Why wait?
Well, they are getting some of the answers now, but there's only so many of them, and they're totally booked. Like most of them have waiting lists of years. And these are people that have loved ones die, sometimes by suicide and so on. And mediums also, it takes a lot of energy because a medium has to amp up their energy. Those without a body, a limiting body, have to amp down their energy. So it takes a lot of a medium. So the average medium can only do a couple readings a day, and only that, a couple readings a week.
But what are we talking about here? Selling communication devices to the other side? How do we know this is real? How do we know it'll work? How do we know that we're not getting up the hopes and desires of those who have lost or who are still in grief, just getting them ready for another big letdown?
Well, yes, several things there. So first of all, we know that about the authentic mediums through the research.
Okay, I don't want to talk about the mediums now. I want to get past that because I'll be honest with you, Mark, I don't give mediums very much credit. I really don't. I've worked on enough cases proving enough mediums to be wrong, and I was privileged to have the information from ABC that proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that John Edwards was a fake. So in my book, that he's closed. But so let's get past the mediums. Okay, because, once again, it depends if you believe in them or you don't, and I'm still in the very gray area when it comes to the credibility of any medium. But let's go to the creation of the equipment itself. How is this going to be beta tested? This is opening up a whole can of worms, ethically and morally.
Well, first of all, it's already been tested. University of Arizona laboratories for consciousness or advancement of consciousness and health. So the proof of concept studies have already been done and replicated. So this is scientific studies that have been duplicated, statistical significance written up, and so on.
Oh, okay.
What is next is creating then a functioning prototype. So people who visit the website, soulphone.org, will see, because, this is a complicated topic, and there's a lot to it. It's difficult to go.
Sure.
So the second thing is, what, open up a can of worms? Well, that kind of depends on whether a person is an optimist or pessimist. That's one way of looking. I think it's going to open up a can of wonder, a can of people, as I said, releasing fear, living in the moment, doing what they came here to do, realizing who they are, letting their light shine.
That's a great idea. But what are the religious viewpoints on this? Don't you think that people are going to look at this as the members of the scientific community playing God?
Well, I can't speak for everybody. Again, it comes down to, is the person a religious fundamentalist where they think their way is the only way? In that case, there'll be no conversation. But there are certainly many open-minded people who have a religion, but also realize that God is not a concrete entity. We're still understanding more about God, and this phenomena of God is still evolving, and we can contribute to that.
How?
So it's going to shake some things up. Definitely, it's going to be an interesting period, and we on the team are trying to foresee all of these eventualities. We have a team on the homepage of the website. Evan Alexander, Raymond Moody, Anita Moore, Johnny, Bernie Siegel, etc.
Yeah.
And so all these people are working with us as well.
Yeah, but these
So
are
we're
all
about to
people.
process.
These are all believers. These are all believers. But what about the people who aren't believers and who want to communicate with those on the other side, or those who have had the wounds heal over time? Do we really want to open up those wounds again?
Well, it's not going. Well, first of all, people always have a choice. But when somebody wants to experience the devices when they're available, and they get a text back, it's like, did you when you were a little boy, did you have a dog named Snoopy? And the parent can ask some questions for which the answer is no. So very quickly they'll be able to get a sense of, hey, this is really our departed child. So will that open wounds or heal wounds?
Well, for example, if somebody has passed away and, the wound is healed, are we selling them a virtual reality world where we're going to be able to talk to our departed loved ones in another area, another sphere, another dimension, another reality? Where does reality start and virtual reality end?
Well, you're a deep thinker there, Rob. But the way I look at it is this: it's just life. Life is out there, and it's huge. I had the opportunity to look at nebulae and galaxies through the Kitts Peak Observatory, 230 times magnification, and you get to a sense of just how vast the world is.
Sure.
So that's what's out there. Again, we as humans are seeing just through a tiny pinhole. So these visits aren't going to be a virtual reality. They'll be visits with their loved ones who are still very much alive and well. The only thing that changed is they dropped their physical body, which is a fraction of who and what they are.
Okay, so how is your device going to be able to find somebody on the other side who doesn't have a device to receive?
Great question. That's why in the beginning there'll be what are called soul studios, where we'll have one of these top mediums to first of all locate the person. So the medium does whatever he or she does. I know you don't want to hear the word medium. But again, there are about 30 who have been well researched by 5 different universities. So just because supposedly is proven wrong, I hope you don't cast out the idea of all. And I would be the first to say that, there's good evidence that a lot of them are frauds or very mediocre, but not all of them.
All right, stand by, Mark. We've got to take our final break. Exo Nation, Mark Pitstick is our special guest. www.soulphone.org and soulproof.com. And we'll be back on the other side of this break as we wrap up this hour here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.
Hi everyone, Rob McConnell here, and I wanted to spend a moment on internet streaming. Everybody has heard about internet streaming, but not many know much about it. Did you know the internet streams just about everything?
Movies.
From new releases to old classics.
TV shows.
Almost every show, every episode, and much more. But the question has always been, how do you do it? Well now, thanks to the folks at 123 Ready TV, I have the answer for you. They have developed a simple program app, 123 Ready TV, that you install on your Windows PC, Android smartphone, or Android tablet that can have you streaming like a pro in less than 5 minutes. You truly won't believe how much is available or how easy it is to do until you try. And for a one-time cost of only $19.99, this product is a real winner. To learn more about 123 Ready TV, visit our website at www.xzbn.net.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
True healing must address 4 levels: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, for us to live joyful and productive lives. We tend to treat 3 of the 4, leaving the spiritual languishing. If you're tired of the same dysfunctional patterns cropping up in your life, Soul Balancing is for you. Trixie Phelps, owner and founder of Soul Balancing, is a naturally gifted energy healer trained in numerous esoteric forms, including shamanism. Trixie has created a powerful modality that safely and effectively clears your energetic field. A soul balancing session can remove interference, heal trauma, and restore your hope. Contact Trixie for a life-changing long-distance session today, www.soulbalancing.world. There's a legend shared by many indigenous cultures of a time when the nations were cast to the 4 corners of the world. Each nation was given a body of sacred knowledge that held a different portion of the truth to preserve. True reality could not be known until all the nations reunited, combining the information. If a single one was missing, the world could not be reborn and darkness would prevail. The Science of Magic Radio is dedicated to reuniting the sacred knowledge. With the understanding, none of us has all the answers, but together we can open new perceptions and possibilities. Through our combined vision, the world can be reborn into a place where darkness no longer prevails. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, and the Science of Magic daily on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net, or visit us at thescienceofmagic.net.
Mark Pitstick is our special guest, X-Zone Nation, www.soulphone.org and soulproof.com. So how many devices are there all told, Mark, that people will have to buy in order to contact their loved ones and those on the other side?
First of all, there'll be nothing to buy in the beginning. As I mentioned, what will be required will be a soul studio with the technology and so on. So people will connect with the studio through a Zoom or Skype type of call. The eventual goal is to have an app that can be cheaply and inexpensively downloaded, so that will be just another service that a smartphone provides, like so many it does now. But that's a ways off.
So there's no cost to the person until the app comes out?
Well, there will be for the sessions. There will be like any other kind of experience, and we don't even know what we're going to try to keep it around $200 for a session.
And how long is the session?
Where in the beginning the person will be able to text with a loved one, later talk, and later see.
And how long is the session, Mark?
Rob, you're asking great questions, and I really appreciate it. But this is so new in its emergence that we haven't even looked at details like that. Everything we do know is on the website, soulphone.org, including videos of Dr. Schwartz talking about this at scientific conferences, scientific papers, etc.
I understand that these are deep questions, but you had the price of $200 a session. So my next question was, how long is a session?
I said we want to keep it around.
Around 200, I see.
And what we're anticipating of that is about an hour session. But don't hold me all this because we're still early in this. You're getting a scoop on things, Rob.
Okay. What happens if it doesn't work?
If it doesn't work, it's like Thomas Edison, 10,000 tries to get the electric light bulb. So we'll learn more about how not to do it, and that will give information for others working on it, and eventually how to do it.
What happens if it's impossible?
Well, based on the proof of concept studies done, and a lot of it, it does not look impossible.
I know there's a big difference. There's a big difference from a proof of concept theory to actually the final product.
As I said, Dr. Schwartz says he anticipates a 90 to 95% probability that they'll have working devices in the time frames I mentioned. 1 year for the soul switch, 2 years for the soul texting, and the others. So that's a pretty high probability, and he's a serious scientist, so he didn't make these numbers up.
I understand that, and I appreciate that, but scientists have been known to be wrong in the past. Because you're dealing with something here that is very controversial, number one. There hasn't been conclusive proof of the existence of and the ability to. So I would put this once again in the 50-50. Now, I'm not privy to all the information that you are, Mark. However, seeing is believing, right?
Well, and that's the ultimate, isn't it? You have a conversation or a text or see a loved one that takes away questions. So I just say check out the evidence, and people can form their own opinions, and there'll be a waiting list, so people will be able to find out someday.
There's going to be a waiting list.
Yeah, every time we speak to groups of people, we've done this so far with several thousand, and we say, how many of you would be interested if there were a device that would allow reliable communication with a departed loved one? How many of you would be interested? Hand goes up always.
Well, of course, these people are those who believe and they want to participate because they haven't gotten over the grief factor yet. There's a lot of psychology involved here. You know, it's nice to be a scientist, but you have to look at the human factor as well. You know, I'm sure some people are going to look at this as, oh yeah, here's another way to bilk those who are in pain and suffering, who just, you know, these people are just looking for a way to make money. Right?
Well, people can believe that, but there'll be nothing to pay for until there's a demonstrable device to allow a valid experience. So if it's not that, then nobody will be in charge, so there won't be bilked.
Let's say, okay, hypothetically, somebody wants to communicate with somebody on the other side, but this other person has been reincarnated. What's going to happen then?
It's a great question. First of all, when I trained with Brian Weiss, he said the average person reincarnates after about 200 Earth years. Now, there are certainly cases where a soul will be motivated to come right back, but that's kind of rare. However, even given that, consciousness, again, is non-local. It's not restricted by time and space like humans, apparently. So that person could still communicate even though they're in a Earth body. We think.
Okay.
Yeah, again, that's not been tested. This is in its infancy.
I'm not quite sure on how you're going to find this one person or this one spirit, the essence of this one person who is dead, wherever they are in the great beyond. How do you do that?
Well, first of all, we have several people who have passed on. For example, Susie Smith, who wrote 30 books on psychic. What the word you don't want?
All right, let's talk about mediumship, okay? What the heck? Just because I'm not a believer, that I'm a guy who likes to see proof, and in 26 years of doing this show, I haven't seen any proof. All the places I've gone and all the investigations I've been on, I still haven't seen any proof.
Have you read Dr. Schwartz's book, The Afterlife Experiments?
I've read many books. Many
I
books.
believe that, but have you read that one?
I don't know. I've had Dr. Schwartz on the show.
Yeah.
And I think he's a brilliant person. No two ways about it. But once again, it seems that the group who believe are all over the board. Like, some believe that it's right away, that people come back. Others say that, the reincarnation isn't real, that when a person's on the other side, they stay on the other side. You've got those who throw in the religious connotation. You've got those who throw in the New Age connotations. Like, it's way all over the board. Mm-hmm. So this is what the hardest part about rational belief in this is, making it so difficult for those who do not have the need to believe in it.
Well, that doesn't discount the reality of any of it, though, Rob. In other words, we talked about how vast the universe is. So what if you said to somebody, what's the universe like? That would be a very hard thing to describe. We're just reaching out and exploring Mars, the moon, and so on. We know there's so much more out there. Likewise with the unseen world. We're just beginning to understand what goes on after death.
I understand that.
Just because there are different beliefs or understandings doesn't mean it's not true, or some of it's not
I understand that, but if you were to tell me today that one of your certified mediums has been in touch with Albert Einstein, and a question was posed to him about whatever the scientific problem is, he gave the scientific solution. The experiment was carried out by qualified members of the scientific community, and it worked. I would believe you.
Yeah. Well, we look forward to that day, but keep in mind,
why can't they do it now?
Medium
why can't they do it now?
Go ahead.
Why can't they do it now? If a medium can communicate, why can't they get that information now? Why can't they get the proof now?
Well, because mediums don't communicate like you and I are communicating now. In other words, they'll get glimpses. They'll get a first letter of a word. They'll get a first name. It's not like the person on the other side can communicate an encyclopedia of knowledge that would be needed to, for example, help with population control or global warming.
So how are you going to get this information in the future if you can't get it in the present with these certified, qualified mediums?
If they can text, that is, those who have, quote, died, if they can text and if they can speak, they'll be able to convey a lot more information more accurately than filtering it through a medium.
That doesn't make sense to me. Maybe it's because I'm so analytical. I don't know.
Well, that's okay. That's a good thing to be.
Yeah.
And, there's going to be a dialogue. So we're just sharing with people what's being done, and people can draw their own conclusions.
I like the fact that you're...
We'll have a show in a couple of years and look at it from a different perspective.
I like the fact that you're giving people hope. I really like that. As a human, I really like that. But I hope it's not a false hope. I really do. Because that would be a travesty.
Yeah, well, those who visit the two websites, soulproof.com, soulphone.org,
why wouldn't you
see lots and lots of evidence.
Why wouldn't you have the product completed before you started this, before you started releasing this? Is this a way to get funding?
No, we're actually set for funding.
Okay.
Now we're starting to educate people about it.
Yeah. All right, Mark, I want to thank you for joining us. Exo Nation, Mark Pitstick has been our guest this hour, www.soulphone.org and Soulproof. I think they're doing this totally ass backwards. I really do. If you've got this kind of technology, why not get it working first? Why not make sure you're not going to break a bunch of hearts, that you're not going to be... people, $200 an hour to talk to their departed ones. My God. I'm sure they'll pay a lot more than that, because after all, it was just about. I'm very skeptical on this one, X-Zone Nation. Send me your emails. Send me your thoughts. X-Zone at xzoneradiotv.com. I am Rob McConnell. This is the X-Zone. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.